This will be a partial tour of my recently planted trees. This first group here are my persimmon trees. These are planted nearly 3 months ago. The one in the front is a coffee cake persimmon. And the one in the back right is a chocolate persimmon. Those two varieties are good pollinators for one another. The one on the back left is a Fuyu persimmon. It's a self-pollinating variety. Here's a picture of what they looked like when they were planted. They were all dormant when they were planted. And all are doing well now and have put on some good growth. Hopefully I'll be able to get some fruit off these next season. These next trees are my mango trees. The one in the front is a coconut cream mango. And the one in the back right is a cherry mango. And the one to the left is a Glen mango. These were planted about 5 months ago. Here's what they looked like when they were planted. As you can see, the Glen mango had a bit more growth than what it has now. It went through transplant shock. I thought I was going to lose this tree. The top of the leader branch died, and I wound up cutting off quite a bit of growth off of it. These other two branches also died, and I had to cut it back even further. Thankfully, it recovered and is doing much better now. It's put on a really good amount of growth, so it should do well. These other two mangoes started to flower shortly after planting. A few mangoes started to develop but fell off before they got much bigger than the size of a pea. I eventually cut off all the panicles on both of these trees. A few weeks ago, the cherry started to develop some flower buds again. This tree is still too young and not established enough to put on a crop, so I doubt I'll get any fruit off of it until next season. This next group are my Pitomba in the front, Grumichama in the back right, and then ice cream bean tree on the back left. These were also planted in the ground 5 months ago. Here's what they look like after planting. Since planting only the Pitomba here in the front managed to flower. It's doing well, but I'm not sure if it will be setting any fruit. The tree appears to be mature enough, but it may not be well enough established to set any fruit. These trees are listed as slow-growing trees, so it may take another season in the ground before the roots are well enough established to produce a crop. The ice cream bean tree in the back is doing well, putting on good growth. The leaves look good with a healthy deep green color. The Grumichama is doing okay. It's put on a little growth since planting. I think this tree is still going through a bit of a transplant shock. The leaves aren't quite as green as they should be, but the tree is doing all right. This next group here are my guavas. These are the pink Barbie variety. They were planted about 6 months ago. These trees are doing very well. Here's what they look like after planting. As you can tell from the previous video, they have put on a good amount of growth and have an abundant amount of flowers. These trees started to flower in late May. I'm hoping I'll get a good crop off of these. I'll be sure to post a follow-up video on them once I start to pick some fruit. These next two trees are my Eureka lemon on the right and the Cara orange tree on the left. They were planted in the ground in early January. Here is what the Eureka lemon looked like after planting. And here's the Cara orange tree. They are both doing well. The Cara put on a large amount of flower buds shortly after planting. Here it is in March. Unfortunately, it wound up losing all of its flowers and only managed to set a few fruit. Here are the only ones that managed to set. A few weeks ago, it started to develop a few more flower buds, and there's a few that have already flowered. So hopefully, it will set a few more this season. The lemon tree is doing well. It set a little fruit, and there are still some flowers on this tree. All the lemons you see here started to set after planting. It doesn't have a large crop setting, but I'm happy with the amount since it hasn't been in the ground all that long. This next set here are my Moro blood orange on the right, and my Satsuma mandarin on the left. These were transplanted about 8 months ago. The mandarin was transplanted right after having set a large amount of fruit, about 100 mandarin. Here's what it looked like just before planting. As you can see, it was heavily loaded with fruit, especially for a tree this size. I should have thinned some fruit off this tree and allowed it to recover a bit after harvesting the fruit before putting it in the ground. And now, as you can see, it's looking stressed. I believe the heavy crop set and immediate transplant after harvest was a bit too much for this tree. Shortly after putting it in the ground, it began to lose leaves and several branches began to dry and die. I had just about given up on this tree, but if you look closely along some of these branches, you can see it has a good amount of growth starting to come in. I believe this tree is starting to recover and it looks like it's going to survive. I've made some marmalade from the fruit off this tree, and it's a favorite of mine. So I'm glad this tree is going to survive, and I'll be able to make some more of that marmalade. The blood orange, on the other hand, has done really well. No transplant shock with this one. It's been putting on some good growth. It did get hit with some leaf miner damage on some of the new growth. I wound up trimming off most of the infected leaves. It hasn't developed any flower buds yet, but it is doing well. And here are my grapefruit trees. That is a Rio Red on the right and an Oro Blanco on the left. These were planted in the ground about 10 months ago. These are also not doing as well as I had hoped. I've been feeding them on a regular basis, but the leaves just don't look all that healthy, and they haven't put on much new growth. The Rio Red put out a good amount of flower buds in early April, but it didn't set any fruit. As you can see here, it has a very minimal amount of growth. The Oro Blanco also put out some flower buds, but they all dried up without setting any fruit as well. Here you can see a small cluster of flowers that dried without setting any fruit. I'll continue to feed them, so hopefully they'll recover and start putting out a good amount of new growth. And this last one here is my ice cream banana plant. This one was the first to be planted in this area. It was planted about a year ago. Here's what it looked like back then. As you can see, it's put on a good amount of growth. It was only standing about 36 inches tall when it was first planted. Now it's about 12 feet tall. According to nursery info, these plants, they typically don't fruit until they're about 2 years old. This plant is a little less than that, so if it doesn't produce fruit this year, I should get some next season. The mother plant put out several pups, and they're getting pretty big. I plan on transplanting them to a different location. I have 2 other banana varieties growing in my backyard. I plan on using another section of my yard to create a banana patch. I'll plant all 3 varieties in that same location as opposed to having them spread out in different areas of my yard. The mother plant I'll leave here until I harvest the fruit off of it. As soon as I do that, I'll cut it down and plant some other type of fruit tree in this area. Before I close out this video, I wanted to show you this. I believe it's a praying mantis cocoon. I found it when I was pruning the Satsuma Mandarin. It doesn't look like anything's emerged out of this cocoon. I'm not sure if they're still alive. It's already fairly warm in my area, and they should have emerged around late spring or so. But I did see a few small newly hatched praying mantis last week running around the yard, so there might be hope for these yet if that's what this cocoon is. If anybody watching this video knows for sure that it's knows what type of cocoon this is, if you could just leave a comment, I'd appreciate it. Okay, that'll be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. If so, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Until the next video, stay safe, grow your own, and thank you for watching.